Could any of the Arizona Diamondbacks prospects that we see in the Arizona Fall League impact the team in 2025? They might have to look there based on the payroll we talked about yesterday. We are discussing this with our favorite boys, the Caray boys, here in 30 seconds. Don't go anywhere. Welcome into another edition of the PHNX D-backs podcast right on PHNX. My name is Derek Montia. As your mayor of PHNX, this man next to me is your thunderstick, Jesse Friedman, and we are pleased to be joined by our favorite boys, the Caray boys. We've got Stefan and Chris Caray. Guys, welcome in. We always are glad to have you here. You always make the show better. I mean, more handsome, obviously.
Well,
but, you know,
there's a lot of hair gel going on.
Yeah. Right. Well, I know you're here for AFL, but I know also you are our Sod Poodles guy. And then there's this guy down here.
Chris is dead to us.
Yeah, Benedict Arnold turncoat.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, whatever. But I don't know. I don't know if we've had the chance to tell you, but congratulations on everything you've been doing this year, right? It's been awesome.
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind for sure. I mean, jumping from the D-backs org to then the big leagues with the A's on TV, it's the craziest year that I've had in my life for sure. And, you know, being away from Steph was hard, but now we're back together. I get to watch him do some stuff in the Fall League and hang out in Arizona. And, you know, anytime we get the chance to come on the PHNX D-backs podcast with you guys, we jump at it.
We appreciate you guys so much. Of course, we did have some wacky postseason stuff we're going to talk about, as well as the Arizona Diamondbacks prospects in the Arizona Fall League that you can watch. And unfortunately, what Hurricane Milton did to Tropicana. We're going to talk about all that on today's episode. Of course, this show is brought to you by our friends at Bet365. Go download the Bet365 app right now. Use that code of PHNX365 when you sign up. Choose your offer and find out why it is never ordinary at Bet365. Well, boys, the Mets eliminated the Philadelphia Phillies last night. I know that there are a lot of Diamondbacks fans that are kind of in favor of that. It's like the lesser of two evils, I guess. But you know, at least for a lot of us, we feel like you know, we've done battle with the Phillies already. It's good to see them kind of get beat by another underdog.
Yeah, I think it really depends on your upbringing, right? We grew up Braves fans, so you never root for the Mets.
Yeah,
ever. I mean, my grandpa would sing a jingle, beat the Mets, beat the Mets, you know, because they have to meet the Mets at the ballpark. But I think it's great. The Mets certainly have that team of destiny vibe, similar to what the Diamondbacks had. And they're really a team that had a couple of free agent players that came in and really changed that clubhouse. You look most notably at the shortstop at Iglesias. Well, not the shortstop, second baseman Jose Iglesias, and what he's been able to do and really rally that team.
337 or whatever it was in the regular season.
It makes you ask the question: why has he been signing repeat minor league contracts? If you look at his numbers at the major league level, the last 5 or 6 years, it's never below 280. Ever. Yeah. And his versatility to play 3 different infield positions and have that leadership and really impact the team for the better. I mean, he was playing for Colorado. I think he did some stuff for Baltimore when he was with Boston. I mean, he's bounced around a number of different organizations, but seemingly has found a home in New York with the whole, oh my God, stuff that he's doing.
Yes. He's also a pop star. Like, I mean, come on, you get that as well.
Right?
He deserves a major league contract at that point.
I think Chris should do covers.
Yeah,
exactly. That would be amazing.
But strictly a Jose Iglesias song. Nothing else. No, but it is amazing to watch the Mets, and I want to see Bryce Harper one day get a ring. I think he's such a great ambassador for the game, and you know, he's really grasped onto Philadelphia well. But for us, we do have a silver lining because our agent is a massive Mets fan, and he's had decades and decades of complete and utter sorrow. So maybe he can find something to finally be happy about.
Yeah, I have a friend, my friend Tim from Las Vegas. He also is a Mets fan, and to see the joy on his face this weekend when I was there was something worthwhile for me, at least. But there's also the fact that the Phillies are kind of enemy number one around here. At least one of the Phillies, for at least one of the people in this room right now, and that's our guy Damon, who is the biggest Garrett Stubbs hater on the planet. Understandably so, because of Stubbs sliding into Ketel Marte and having that injury, but also just in general for him being a mascot masquerading as a baseball player, as Damon would put it. But one of our favorite things that, or I guess one of our other favorite bits, of course, for sure, is this video that we came across of a Phillies super fan kind of having a couple of moments here. Damon, if you would.
I ain't hear no bell yet. We ain't done yet. I hear those trumpets, and I hear runs scored. That's what I'm talking about. Red October is still here, and my Phillies still got some fight. Let's go, Phillies! Yeah! So the season is over.
Not to laugh in his face, but I respect that man for some reason based on the bravery, not only to pull off that look, right, but to be sitting there and believe in your team that late, even though they're down in both the game and the series.
In full face paint, too. And, I mean, he's among friends in that video. You have to take a look at it, but he's at Citizens Bank Park.
Right, right.
That's a thick Philly accent on him right there.
Yeah.
Talking about, the Phillies are down for the count. We're done. The season's over. We're gonna go to Wawa and go get some hoagies. That's really their whole season's is over and done with. But they're a good team, and really I think they're built to win for the next couple of years. I think he's got more to look forward to with the Sixers coming up and the Eagles, and the Mets maybe have a little bit less to look forward to with their fan bases the way they typically are.
For sure.
Well, you talk about the face paint. It looks like Steve Borden, a.k.a. Sting, is cosplaying as a Philly fan.
Yeah, and I love that reference.
Well, yeah, so you're looking at them, and what's great about those fan bases in those major market cities is they never give up on their team.
Right.
But when they give up, it crashes.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I do like that. And they don't blame the opposing team at all. Like, their hatred towards the opposing team and fan base ends almost in that moment so that they can turn their anger towards their own organization and how much they screwed up. I mean, like, coming from a place where the Diamondbacks had a disappointing end to their season, right? We know a lot of people were calling for changes in leadership and things like that. And it's kind of amazing to me that the Phillies had the season they had. They made it, to the NLDS. Obviously, the playoffs, anything can happen in the playoffs. And we've been debating it a bit, but the layoff so far doesn't seem great for some teams, but that's a whole other topic. But yeah, like, the Phillies didn't get the job done, and I saw a lot of people calling for changes at management. Changes.
I mean, Philadelphia sports radio is in shambles this morning.
Oh yeah,
right.
My good friend John Kincaid is definitely having a tough one this afternoon out in Philadelphia. But
they're
really
fielding phone calls from a bunch of totally reasonable people.
Yeah, I mean, well, on the other side of that completely, you look at the Mets fans who have probably been the most downtrodden fan base in baseball since 1986.
Yeah.
And one in particular, I don't know if you see his videos, Frank the Tank on Barstool.
We don't talk about Frank the Tank here. Okay, Frank the Tank cursed his team, cursed Paul Sewald, and we don't bring him up.
Guess where I met him?
Where did you meet him?
Right here, Chase Field.
Chris, no. Wow. Yeah.
Yep.
When he was throwing out the first pitch?
Yep.
Oh,
yep.
wow.
It might actually be Chris's fault.
So
Do we consider that it might be Chris's fault?
Chris is the reason that Paul
We're getting to the root of the problem, and it might be sitting in this room right now. Well, my favorite thing about that Philadelphia fan that we showed is that this isn't his first rodeo in regards to making these videos. We have one from the 2023 NLCS, which this was when the Diamondbacks beat the Phillies. Damon, if you don't mind.
Down by 2 runs, but I didn't hear no bell. This game ain't over yet, and I know my Phillies are going to be able to pull this out. So the season is over.
At least he's consistent. That's what I could appreciate.
It's the gift that keeps on giving.
It really is. It really is.
I feel like this Phillies team, I picked the Phillies to win the World Series.
They
were my pick at the outset of the season.
Yeah.
I felt pretty good about it. But the more that I see the Phillies in the playoffs, the more I get the sense that they're a team you can pitch to a certain extent. Like, they're a little bit chase prone at times. And we saw the Diamondbacks exploit that last year in the NLCS. And it kind of felt like the Mets found a way to do the same thing. So, I don't know. It's a hard team to know what to do with, because I still view them as a contender for probably at least a couple more years. I know some of these guys are getting a little bit older, but I'm probably still going to be pretty bullish on the Phillies going into next year.
It's hard not to be.
Well, you have to be. And I think that another thing that I always consider when I look at how the playoffs shake out, who has had the most playoff experience? Those are always the teams that seem to have more success, right? Teams that were in the NLDS usually make the jump to the NLCS. Teams that were in the NLCS, they have the experience. They've played there, especially against an opponent like the Mets.
The Phillies are going backwards.
Right, they're going backwards. So, I mean, that might be an indicator that maybe their window's closing a little bit. You know, Dabrowski's going to do an amazing job trying to get that team consistently in the postseason. Their farm system a little bit depleted right now, and I think that's something that you're really going to have to look at. There are a couple guys that need to make decisions on, and that could be a very different looking clubhouse in 2025 compared to what we saw here in 2024.
Can anyone stop the Mets, Chris?
San Diego could.
Yeah.
San Diego could. Yeah. I mean, at that point, in terms of the two most talented, that's what I was going to say, is that he and I were talking about this, and on paper, the Phillies had the most talented team in all the playoffs, I think.
Yeah.
Offensively, they had great pitching. Their bullpen was pretty decent. San Diego's right up there in the National League with them. Yeah. But, like, as you can see, like, we're seeing that debate, that argument continue to play out about, is the wild card round more beneficial for teams to play in versus taking the bye, right?
Sure.
Because all of that momentum that the Mets had, I mean, they played a string of 4 or 5 games in the span of 3 days after the Braves situation, and then you have the wild card against Milwaukee, and all of that momentum and all of that adversity they had to go through and all the comebacks they had to make into the playoffs, I think allowed them to kind of springboard into that Phillies series and take care of business. And now with a little bit of rest, but still riding on that confidence, they may be the team to beat, because the hottest team, as we know with the Diamondbacks from last year, is always the toughest team to beat. It's not always the best team. It's the team that gets hot at the right time.
Yeah, and I'd make the argument that if the Padres got off to, maybe if they had Luis Arraez to begin the season, they might have won that division.
Yeah.
I think they might have
won
that
probably.
division.
Yeah, I thought they might toward the end. I mean,
they were my World Series pick going into the postseason. Not going into the season, obviously. I'm not a
you can't see
the future.
I
can't see the future. I cannot. D-backs World Series 2025. No, I think it's really going to be exciting. That Game 5 is going to be cool. And how about the Tigers?
Yeah,
you've seen all the memes about
awesome.
Tarek Skubal and how they have no starting rotation. They did what was it like? They said explain in basic terms what it's like for the Tigers, and they said, well, they have 9 Jose Iglesiases, and then Luka Doncic comes in once every 5 days and gives them a chance to win. And I mean, it's really, really cool to see.
It was more like they have 9 Joe Ingles.
Yeah, that's what it was. That's what it was.
Yeah. And one Luka Doncic every 5 days. I saw Skubal pitch. We actually knocked him out of the game, not early, but he is the real deal.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy's massive. He's just a big human being, and he can hurl the baseball. And when you have that good pitching, because all you really need is 3 good starters, and then the rest move to the bullpen, and then you kick out some of your, middle relief guys, and you just have every single reliever be a leverage guy in the playoffs. And next thing you know, if your offense can find the right things and play situational baseball the right way, which is where I would have thought the D-backs would have had a lot of successes, because they can do everything well on the offensive side. They can hit for power. They have contact. They can run the bases. They've got guys that lay down bunts. All of that stuff comes back into play for the playoffs, which we've always asked the question, why are they not doing that, A, in the minors, and B, during the regular season? I don't give a blank at all. If your number 3 hitter is coming up, there are runners on first and second with nobody out in the regular season. There's no score. You're trying to get back into the game. Lay down a bunt. Yeah. Lay it down.
Well, I think it's and the number 3 hitter. In today's era of baseball, I understand why they don't do that. I understand why they don't do it with the number 3 hitter in particular. But one thing that we see in the minors, and again, it's not a critique. It's just the way that the game's going. You see guys 1 through 9, even more of your contact-oriented hitters, your leadoff guys, your 7 through 9 hitters that are gripping and ripping, just swinging through their shoes. It's just very interesting. And I know that it's the market that's really determining how guys are deciding to play. You're going to make $300 million if you hit 40 home runs a year. Sure. I understand that, but not every player is physically built to do that. Not every player is going to be capable of doing that.
Well, and some of the criticism towards Torey Lovullo managing the Diamondbacks this season was this team wasn't expected to be the power team that it was. This team was not expected to lead MLB in runs, right? But
by like a wide margin.
By a wide margin, right? But I mean, it got to a point where it did feel like they kind of had crossed over into being like a power hitting team, and then if they didn't hit a home run in a game, they really weren't likely to win it, and that wasn't really their identity last year. I felt like maybe there was a lack of adapting to situations like you said. Like, yeah, that you have some power coming up, but it felt like there was a lot of times where you didn't see them trying to just manufacture runs and do those small things that they were successful at last season.
Well, Derek, it's a game of calculated risk. That's why I say, even if it is the number 3 hitter, and I understand where you're coming from, there's a two-sided argument here. Yeah, you're not laying down bunts, right? So hitters don't really know how to bunt the ball. But since there aren't any bunts that are really being put out there in the minors and in the regular season, pitchers don't know how to field bunts either.
Yeah.
So if you get one down, the chance of you reaching base is a lot higher than it was, say, 10, 20 years ago. So it's not just saying, hey, I'm going to be a sacrifice. This is, hey, I might even be able to get on base while also moving the runners over.
Yeah.
And then you've runners on second and third and one out. You've hit the ball to the right side or even deep to short. They're not going to have a double play. You bring home a run.
Yeah. Situational hitting is definitely important. And again, I think just from afar, I think Torrey caught a lot of flack for things that really were out of his control. There were a lot of players that were injured. Yeah. This team was banking on a couple of key performances from free agents, and it didn't really happen the way that they had hoped. And that's not anything that you can do. That's not a manager's decision. I think that some guys had a tough year. We're very open about Corbin and how great he is and how we think he's going to continuously be one of the best players in baseball every single year. But he had a bit of a sophomore slump this year.
He did.
And
They
needed him to be out hitting quickly, hitting early, and that just didn't happen until he sort of flipped that switch. This is a game of responses. It's a game of adjustments, and if you can't adjust, you'll be out of the game. Fortunately, Corbin adjusted in a big way about halfway to 2/3 of the way through the season, and I think the D-backs are going to be just fine. There's enough in the farm system. There's enough at AAA. They just have to decide, are we going to be the team that continues to add to fill our needs, or are we going to promote from within and trust our development? Because in my mind, that's what got you there.
Yeah.
That's what got you there.
For
Corbin got you there. Guys like Pavin, Cattell, the guys that, maybe didn't come up through your farm system, but have been with the organization for a long time. Bringing in mercenaries, you have a really, really good development staff, a really good farm system that I think can be utilized a little bit more than it was this year.
There comes a point where you can complement those guys and you can bring in a couple of, free agents or whatever. But yeah, the Diamondbacks aren't a team that are going to be able to sustain that. I mean, look what happened this year. They brought in guys that honestly had career years, and now they literally can't afford to bring them back, most likely based on the fact that they were just so good this season with this team, and they already have a lot of their money already committed, to the team as it stands.
Well, it's not just limited to the Diamondbacks either. I rember a Diamondbacks prospect that was traded to our Oakland A's and then was flipped to the Brewers, was the International League Pitcher of the Year this year and won the AAA Triple Crown and didn't make his major league debut for the Brewers. And yeah, the Brewers were a good team, but throw him in the bullpen. Have him do some. He's already done everything that he needs to do. That it is mind-boggling to me now, seeing what I see with what the A's do.
Yeah.
They're going to give an opportunity to a guy that deserves it. Yeah. For some reason, you think the 5 ERA reliever is going to be better than the kid that's never gotten a shot at the big leagues before, and they just sit there and they lose all confidence by being in AAA for 2.5 years.
I think there's more to it. It's more complicated than that because of the 40-man roster, because of the options that they have, and you got to replace roster spots, and it's a tough decision, right? There's a reason I'm not a GM. I don't. That is way above my pay grade, but right. I think that Chris is right in a couple of different ways, and the D-backs are in this weird, awkward position where they're a winning team. Yeah. They're not at a point where they're going to be sellers at the deadline for at least the foreseeable future. And if you have a player that you can't afford at the end of the season, well, boy, would it be nice to be able to flip him for some prospects, kind of like what the Padres did with Juan Soto. They gave away a ton that essentially made the Nationals a top farm system in baseball, and they're going to be really good for a long time. Yeah. So
Michael King,
that's
Michael King. That trade ended up working out so well for
both parties.
Involved. Yeah. So, and I know that obviously the Dodgers made a huge statement in that game that is now causing a Game 5 in the NLDS, and they did not need situational hitting with that one because they were smashing the ball.
Yes.
So, it's interesting to see what's going to happen here. We are actually going to bring you a post-game show. That's how much me and this guy are sicko about baseball. So make sure to join us for that tomorrow night after the end of the NLDS. But yeah, these this division series round has been a lot of fun to watch, and I think it has been because of the matchups, because of the fact that you have the Dodgers and the Padres, you have you have the Mets and the Phillies, just teams that are division rivals that hate each other here, essentially competing to advance for the biggest prize in baseball, right? But you also have local announcers calling some of these postseason
one of
games.
my favorite postseason narratives is the controversy of having national broadcasters broadcast all of the games. And Chris, I think it was you who tweeted about this the other day. Everyone is convinced that the national broadcaster hates their team, right?
Oh yeah, and we know that for a fact as Diamondbacks fans.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and of course Padres fans, I especially understand it for them because Joe Davis is literally the play-by-play voice of the Los Angeles Dodgers. So I think Joe Davis does a pretty good job with that, but it's obviously a difficult balance to strike. I'm curious for you guys as play-by-play broadcasters. Do you think it is a little weird that we have national broadcasters doing these postseason games as opposed to having guys like you who've been with the team the entire season? To me, that would make a little more sense, and I think these fan bases would probably be a little bit happier that way.
Yeah, I think that for me, and again, I'm not in the majors yet, so maybe my opinion would change if I was in that position. But I think that being a national broadcaster is such a difficult job, and people don't really give those guys the credit that they deserve. Yeah. One thing that I've noticed, the product has been a little bit different from what I'm used to seeing in years past. It's almost like the crowd noise is turned down.
Yeah. What is up with that?
Atmospherically, it hasn't seemed as big of a game as in years past, and that's not the fault of the broadcasters. That's not the fault of production. It just seems like a different way of going about things. Every team does things differently because, as you know, there's so much coverage for all these games, from the wild card to the World Series. They are having national broadcasters. They're having ESPN radio, MLB Network radio, then, of course, the two local radio guys. And a lot of the time you will see the TV play-by-play guys go over to radio. And I think that one of the cool things for all of us is to go be at the pinnacle of this sport and to go be involved in it, whether it's pre and post or doing things. My dad has always wanted to call the World Series. He was with TBS, and Bob Costas last night had a little premature base hit line-out call, and that happened to my dad. It got him fired from TBS the next day. So there's a lot of pressure especially when you're in an environment like Yankee Stadium and anything involving a New York sports team. But
real.
I think absolutely, and I think that for us as broadcasters, would I love to be a part of it? Yeah, I think I would. But the broadcasters that are doing the national games deserve a little bit more credit.
Yeah, no, and I don't disagree with that. And of course, your opinion matters the most. But I will say that for me, it does seem like I don't know, like that you call the games for this team all season long, and then somebody else takes over, and of course the broadcasters that have been doing it throughout the season, we know how people feel about Bert, right? There's a love-hate relationship a little bit with our broadcasting team at times, but at the same time, I think Diamondbacks fans wouldn't want anybody else on the call, especially considering what we've seen at a national level, just because of the fact that the nicknames, the little jokes,
you
the
just
things
get
that
to know
they've
your
done.
team so much better.
Yeah.
I mean, the national broadcaster has kind of an impossible job. There's no way for you to really understand the full gamut of storylines and whatnot with all of the players as a local broadcaster would.
I mean, I could go off on a tangent of explaining why the way that everything is, right? I mean, learning about the business side of things and contracts and everything.
Yeah, for sure.
You're seeing guys that might not actually be everyday baseball broadcasters call playoff baseball games, and they're talented. They're absolutely talented, but they're under contract with the network. So the network allots a certain amount of events that they have to do. So they'll put them on baseball, or they'll put them on basketball or football, and they hit that certain number of events, right? Instead of bringing in baseball people, they might have somebody that's doing the NBA and also Major League Baseball that's not an everyday baseball person doing the games. Right. That's no knock on them. That's just the way the network operates. For me, the question that I still ask is, so the NBA is more popular than Major League Baseball in terms of ESPN, TNT, the way people view it. But yet, in the NBA, the first round is broadcast also by the regional sports networks. So for Major League Baseball, you have the wild card series, you have the division series. What does it take away from having your region being able to tune into their home broadcasters. I'm not talking about the CS or the World Series. I'm talking about just the wild card series and the division series.
Yeah.
Because then your fans can pick and choose. And, ESPN, let's face it, their coverage of baseball is a lot less than Fox or TBS's is. It gets a little bit better during the playoff season, but they don't put as much of an emphasis on the sport of baseball as they would the NBA or the NFL. So by allowing the regional sports networks to come in and for the fans to identify with their broadcasters, I think it creates a more intimate experience. And it would also allow the regional sports networks to be creative like the national networks and have that accessibility. I also think, and Steph, you can butt in on this if you agree or disagree, but the in-game interviews are tough for a player that just gets out 7 innings of work and it's a 1-0 game. The last thing they want to do is talk to a reporter or talk to the broadcasters. I feel like they would be a whole lot more inclined to talk to people that they see every single day, like the regional broadcasters.
Right.
And obviously it's a responsibility of the network and the national networks to get that done. No fault against the reporters. They're just doing their jobs. But I do think that there is a level of comfort that exists with having your people covering your team at that point in time.
Well, and the end all be all of it is the people that are in those chairs are certainly deserving of being in those chairs. It's just different this year than in years past. I've gotten to know Joe Buck a little bit during this off season, and he is one of the great sportscasters of our era. And every time he was on the call, it felt like a big game. And it's these are the voices that really bring that to life. Yeah. And we want to make sure every game feels like a big game. We want to make sure that we're not inundated with things that are beyond the game, right? At some point, all the topical stories that we've heard over and over and over again about Ohtani or about Lindor, that's great. We've heard it all a million times during the regular season. It's great to harken back to, but we can't lose sight of the fact that the most important thing that's happening is a playoff game between these two teams. And that I think is what it really all comes down to. The national broadcasters are always going to get flack. They're always going to get the trolls coming after them. Yeah. And I hate that. I think both of us, we're ambitious. That's where we want to be eventually. And you got to take the good with the bad. But they are getting entirely too much. And the production crews are getting entirely too much. It is a stressful job, and they deserve certainly their flowers.
You are national for a reason. That's the only way I can say it. Is whatever reason that is, you were a fit for that network, and you get there and you are paid like a national broadcaster or camera person or producer. These are the best of the best working. Yeah. Now, I might not like one guy's style. I might think that one guy's style would be better in this situation, but at the end of the day, I have an immense amount of respect for anybody that puts on that headset, and there are millions of people watching, right? Yeah. We get tens of thousands with the A's, other regional sports networks, maybe like what my dad does in Valley Midwest, could get close to hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people watching a night because of the fact that the team's so big. Mm-hmm. So it is a difficult undertaking, but the national broadcasters, they are incredible, and they do have a lot. And if I was in that exact same position, I'm sure they would find reasons to hate me and say, get this guy the hell off of the broadcast.
Yeah. You guys are ready for the hate mail.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Well, we've lived through it already.
Are you kidding me? With us being Nepo children? If it does happen, it's gonna be really bad. It's gonna be really bad.
I'm curious you mentioned the business side earlier, Chris. I'm curious. So your proposal, which I think sounds great, to have like just the wild card series and the division series broadcasted locally. Do you think a holdback there would be that the national broadcast now is like losing a big part of the audience? They're not getting the exclusive rights to those games. Is that the issue there?
That's an amazing question. And that's a question that I had a discussion with a good friend that I worked with on the A's. And I said, again, I asked, okay, so I'm not going to say a blanket statement like ESPN doesn't care about baseball. That's not true. They don't care about baseball as much as they care about the NBA. That is evident with their coverage
100%,
of what they do. Their shows,
absolutely.
Their basketball coverage. Baseball is an older sport to ESPN. It's archaic. There's no more real baseball coverage other than, Sunday Night Baseball with Carl Ravage during the regular season.
Yeah,
Fox and TBS do it well more consistently with Joe Davis, Adam Amin. They have the FS1 with Aaron Goldsmith. They've got TBS with Brian Anderson, Don Orsillo, all those people.
Right.
But if the NBA, which is your big money maker, right, on ESPN and TNT and ABC and all that stuff, if they're allowed to have their regional broadcasts on, they're still losing viewers, and they're your bigger money making scheme,
yeah,
right? So baseball, you're losing viewers because of the regional sports networks, but it's only limited to that region.
Yeah.
And even so, with all of the network blackouts and all the regional sports network issues that are going on right now with the Bally's and all that, baseball, it's so hard to access anyway. It's not like you're not going to be losing millions and millions of people. It's just giving them an option to do so.
Baseball shoots itself in the foot when it comes to a lot of that stuff, because I mean, when you talk about popularity and you talk about interest in the game, it's growing once again, right? The changes they made to the game and such, but there's still a lot of pains, a lot of growing pains, I guess you could say, with MLB because of all of that stuff. I mean, people right now, they just want to pay to watch their team and be able to watch it, whether they're living in the city that they're in or, living somewhere else or whatever. And like, it just feels like there's entirely too many situations where people cannot do that. And it's silly to me.
Well, I think you got to think outside the box. You guys have been consumers of baseball your entire life. You know this. And the traditional model of broadcasting is, okay, broadcaster, analyst, game.
Right.
And if they're going to have coverage discrepancies or disagreements between two different networks, how about you think outside the box with the way that you do the game?
Yeah.
What if you look at your post-game shows, how you guys just react and are loose, like a Peyton and Eli style?
Yeah.
Would you watch Berthume and his partners and Gonzo and all the amazing people that have done those games do a broadcast of that style where it's not play-by-play typically?
Oh yeah.
And they go and they put it on D-backs, dbackslive.com or dbacks.com, whatever it is, or on the local Arizona Family Sports Channel, wherever you can access it on TV. That way it's not true play-by-play, but at least you have an immediate reaction to how the game's being played. Look at my generation, and really, we're not too far removed in age, but how many people are well, I don't know. I mean, you guys
were born after I graduated from high school, so let's just not even go there, but that's fine.
Look,
I appreciate it nonetheless.
Hey, you're as young as you feel.
I'm into Cougars, Dad.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. But no, I think that you look at even on gaming and TikTok, everybody watches a streamer.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah.
And if you do it like that style of broadcast, what's the harm in that?
Right. No, you're right.
What's the harm in that?
And the bigger thing is adapting and like you said, doing things as the next like generation of viewers are going to be into, right? So yeah, baseball definitely needs to continue to adapt, and they might not be doing it quickly enough.
Well, and you make a great point too, because going back to just the national broadcaster point, I think the one thing that I see a lot with national broadcasters that might not be covering a big league team is they feel the need to regurgitate a lot of information to prove that they've done their homework.
Yeah.
Right? To prove that they know what they're talking about. But it gets to the point where when you're in a playoff environment and you have one analyst, two analysts, whatever, the third or fourth analyst is always the crowd. You want to let the crowd play for you because, and I think that there is a lot of motion graphics. There is a lot of stuff they have to tee up, and there is a lot of interview questions. And there are a lot of things that you have to get people involved with. But I would be scared out of my mind if I wasn't covering a specific team and doing the games. I would try my best to prove, hey, I know what I'm talking about and I want to be confident.
Yeah.
But sometimes that gets in the way of the actual broadcast. And going back to his point about doing a stream or whatever, I'd love to see something like a Dallas Braden and a Trevor Plouffe or whatever. The guys that are comedic but also can tell stories that us play-by-play people would never be able to tell you what it's like in a major league clubhouse or how this guy did this to this guy. It's great.
That's why we called Archie Bradley in here, so he could come in here and do all of that stuff.
The golf aficionado.
Yeah. His golf stories are great. So are his hunting stories, but his baseball stories are incredible.
The popularity of the New York Mets booth is one of the most popular booths, regional booths. I
sure.
know that everybody
Mets
would love to
fans
see Gary
would love
Cohen's
that.
reaction, not only to the good but to the bad, and that would be really cool to see here in Arizona or wherever it may be. And I'm getting kind of a little bit of a taste of what it's like not to do a national broadcast, obviously, because there aren't a ton of people watching, but still similar in I'm not with a lot of the players that are in this fall league. It is definitely an adjustment compared to being with a team every single day.
Sure.
And I definitely can sympathize with those guys that maybe aren't with the team every day, trying to find storylines that are interesting and intriguing, and to bring in maybe fans from a different party than, say, you're a Mets fan or a Phillies fan, but bring in the others that are watching too.
Yeah, and I understand because I mess up names of players on every single episode of the show. So I'm sure that's a big thing. You got to make sure you learn how to get all the players' names right. Or you just learn how to say them weird like Bert, who will continue to confound Jesse by pronouncing William Contreras' name like that. But we did have some comments in the chat. First, I got to address Chris, who thinks this is a pre-recorded episode. Surprise! It's not, Chris. The Groundhog Mama already wants you to join the broadcast and replace Bert. So we got that going on as well. It's not pretty recorded; it's pre-recorded. But yeah, it's not.
Well, it might, I mean, you're looking pretty good there.
Thank you.
I mean, you might be pretty recorded.
Hey, you know, the two of you are complimenting me entirely too much, and I love it. I love it. You guys are coming back all the time.
compliment you like this.
Nobody around PHNX does. These monsters
but
are
yet
awful.
you won't accept my advances to get a drink with me.
We'll talk after the show.
I heard you're
Okay,
up. Well,
again.
you know, I love power, and I heard you're up for re-election,
Right.
so that's why.
See,
really
this
You
man knows what he's
should-
talking about.
you
Look
should,
at the shirt he's wearing. He brought the right shirt
I
today.
did. I'm a company shill. Yeah,
I
I'm
love it.
willing. I'm out for the highest bidder.
You might want to take them on the campaign trail with you.
Absolutely.
It'll be
I'm
good.
winning this campaign. That's
Well,
for sure.
if we weren't, you know, supporting you, I'm just afraid with your big, strong, strapping man arms that you would be able to lift us up and gorilla press us through this table. So.
That's two wrestling
We
references.
absolutely dominate the demographic of 60-year-old women and up.
Yes, me too.
We got that.
They love me.
Yeah, that boy. We get the boyish charm. That's
This
what we
is
have.
amazing.
Not much else.
Oh,
So if you're losing out on that,
We're good. We are
we'll
good.
help you out.
We're gonna get this re-election campaign settled here shortly. But we do thank you guys for being here in the PHNX Sports YouTube channel. Even if you don't believe that we're live right now, we are live. It's not pre-recorded. So make sure, leave us a comment, hit that like button. We love it when you do that. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that notifications button. That way you don't miss whenever our shows go live. And of course, even if you hit that, don't hit it twice, but I guess make sure, confirm you've hit that like button. If you're listening on the audio podcasting side, make sure you subscribe over there. Leave us a review. We appreciate the feedback so much. On the other side of this break, we're going to talk to these guys about Arizona Fall League and about you broadcasting all of those games, as well as which prospects from the Arizona Diamondbacks organization might be able to help this team in 2025. We'll do that on the other side of this break. Of course, make sure to check out our friends at Bet365. They pioneer live in-game betting, and they offer the widest range of games and markets available for live in-game betting across 78 sports. Right now, new customers can choose between two offers when they open up an account at Bet365. Use that code of PHNX365 to sign up, deposit $10, and choose either between a bet and get offer. You can place a $5 bet and receive $150 in bonus bets, or a first bet safety net offer where you can place up to a $1,000 bet. And if your qualifying bet loses, you receive a matched refund in bonus bets. Go download the Bet365 app right now and use that code of PHNX365 when you sign up. Choose your offer and find out why it is never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or over and physically located in Arizona. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. Text NEXT STEP to 53342 or visit problemgambling.az.gov. Also, of course, we are very proud to partner together with Sanderson Ford as our official vehicle sponsor. If you are looking for a new vehicle, Sanderson Ford is the place to go. They are giving you big payoffs like 0% financing on new 2024 F-150, Escape, Edge, Explorer, and Expeditions. And of course, as you know, when we say on Monday, every month on this show is Hispanic Heritage Month, but our friends over at Sanderson Ford are helping celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month with their Trunk or Treat event on October 19th from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. So they got deals on the 2024 Ford Bronco Sport for 5.9% APR for 66 months plus $2,000 cash back. Must be financed through Ford Motor Credit, OAC. Also, make sure to stop by, help us celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month with a Dia de los Muertos inspired trunk or treat at Sanderson Ford. See dealership for details. All right, well, we got some fun talk about Arizona Fall League. Of course, we've converted over to a Fall League podcast now because we could talk about the postseason, but we're not a part of that. But we are a part of this. And I know for us, Fall League is a lot of fun. I mean, it just means once again that Arizona is the place to be for baseball all time of the year, right? But what are your thoughts so far on Arizona Fall League? And I mean, is this your first year calling it?
No, it's my second year. Chris
Okay.
and I did it last year together, and he decided to take a step away. I think there may have been some more. And I mean, for us in the minor leagues, there really are some great opportunities to call games beyond just the season. This is probably at the top of that list, but there's such premium talent that's here this year. I've gotten to see a couple of games that maybe are games that only a mother could love on the defensive side of the last 2 nights. But I think that offensively things have been really, really good so far. And that's kind of what's moving the needle in baseball as it is. I got to see Salt River 2 nights ago, and Dylan Ray pitched, number 16 prospect in the D-backs organization. And
did not go well for him.
That's kind of been a thing for Dylan this season. He struggled early in games, but then really settled in. So if you give him a 3-inning start, you're not really going to see how the true line works out for him.
Sure.
He's got a 4-pitch mix that's really, really good. And again, he didn't start pitching until June of this year because of injury. So he's coming back from injury, and it took him quite a bit of time. And I'm going to give these players a ton of grace. They're 3 or 4 weeks removed from their minor league seasons, trying to get back into the swing of things and playing against some really high-level competition that they haven't faced before.
Speaking of injuries, Yumin Lin's injury was about as brutal as could be imagined. Were you in the building for this?
I was
there. Okay,
I was. I texted you about this.
Right. Yes.
I think I was the one that gave you the scoop.
You absolutely did. It's all coming back to me now. So Yumin Lin is standing in the dugout. Right?
Yeah,
he's not pitching that day. He's just standing in the dugout, and there's a foul line drive that hits him basically in the face. Right?
Yeah, it was Abimelech Ortiz, a big power hitting lefty in the Rangers organization, just turns on a baseball, and I look over, and I can't. Yumin's not the tallest guy, and he's not the biggest guy in terms of stature.
Right. No.
So I look over at the dugout. So did Abimelech rip a hole through the netting in front of the dugout railing? Because I see like a grounds crew member coming over, an umpire coming over. But I text our video coordinator, Todd Robinson. I said, is there somebody down? He said, yeah, Jimmy's down. They call him Jimmy in the clubhouse, Yumin. And he was down and out, and I spoke with Connor Oates, our trainer, who's now the head trainer for the Salt River Raptors. Said, is he okay? He walked out under his own power, and he said, yeah, he'd probably be okay to pitch if you needed him to. But they wanted to make sure that of course they did their due diligence. At that point, he was the top pitching prospect in the organization before Yilber Diaz kind of jumped up and did what Yilber Diaz does. But he ended up being fine. It took him a little bit of time to come back and settled in nicely in the back half of the season, but it was really scary. I mean, they said an inch or two up could have hit him in the temple and could have been catastrophic. So
that's crazy.
We're really happy that he's okay. He's a great person.
Well, he made his AFL debut last night for the Raptors. Went 3 innings, 3 hits allowed, no runs, no walks, and 3 strikeouts. I mean, you guys are both pretty familiar with him. Is he for real? And do you think he's going to possibly impact this team in the near future?
I think so. I think he definitely has a chance to. I think the question is what do you do with him? He's a 6-pitch arsenal guy. Fastball, curveball, slider, changeup, cutter, sinker. And he had the splitter coming into this year, but they've gone away from it. He has to make a decision on which pitches he's going to throw the most.
Yeah.
And when you have the kitchen sink, sometimes you can use the kitchen sink throughout the course of a game.
Sure.
If you go fastball, changeup, sinker every time, you're going to get hit hard. And Yumin has some really good pitches. And I think one thing they've really been focusing on with him is building up his weight, trying to make sure that he can get through a season in terms of injury and make sure they're not overworking him and overmanaging him. He's just 20 years old. Mm-hmm. So I think he definitely has a chance to be really, really good in the D-backs work.
You make a great point too, though, because we saw guys that featured 7-8 pitch mix.
Right.
Like Chris Bassett is one that comes to mind. I mean, throws everything.
Right.
And what you don't see in the minors as much that you do see in the majors is complete and utter understanding of what you're going to throw. Establishing the fastball is incredibly important. It's more important than I ever thought it was now seeing what I see. And Stefan's right. That whole kitchen sink doesn't necessarily need to be displayed in a whole game. You might have 4 pitches that you use, but you may use a 2-pitch mix through the first 3 or 4 innings, and it may be unhittable, and then you still have 4 or 5 more pitches to offer moving forward in the final 2 innings. Let's say you're your 3rd time through the order, and you haven't even shown your tertiary stuff yet. That's where Yu-Min Lin, when he's been successful, has been able to command 1 or 2 pitches really, really well and dominate there. And then when he's needed to go to his extra stuff to control that, to keep hitters on their toes, that is what makes him so special.
Yeah.
Because, every little league kid or middle school kid, even high school kids, I throw a knuckleball or I throw a slurve. No, you don't. You don't. You don't. You throw a changeup and you think it's a slider.
Yeah. And it moves a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like 45 miles an hour. Like, cool your jets.
Right.
But for somebody as rare as Yu-Min Lin to be able to command those pitches and look so good while doing it, it's just the next of sequencing and execution. And that's what is going to turn him from a good pitcher into a great pitcher. And there's always room for one of those on a roster.
That's exciting.
Yeah. Stefan, I'm curious about Gilbert Diaz. I mean, we got to see him in the big leagues this year. He was one of the biggest stories for the Diamondbacks in the minor leagues this season. It seems like as far as pitching prospects in this organization go, he just sort of rose to the top this season. What did you see from him?
Well, and I wish I could have said it before the season started, and I said this to everybody, is that Gilbert was the best pitcher in the organization. He was the best pitcher in the organization last year when he came up to us. Last season, when the Sod Poodles won the championship, they had 2 starting pitchers for the course of the postseason. Two. Diaz, Ray.
Sounds like the Diamondbacks.
They had a combined 5 or 6 starts of AA experience.
That's more than the Tigers this year, right?
They were dominant, and you look at I was always told his name's Gilbert, but if it is Gilbert, it's
because in Spanish it's like Joe.
The Y sound.
Yeah,
like
exactly. Anyway, Diaz's story from selling candy in Venezuela to being here in Arizona.
We were calling him El Dulce, or we were trying to find something, Candyman, something.
He's amazing. He's amazing. The Candyman works perfect.
Right.
It's like with Blake Walston, I always called him the Carolina Reaper.
Oh, I like
that. which was because North Carolina kid, but he's fantastic.
There's only one Reaper now in the big leagues.
There is only one Reaper.
There's only
that
one
is
Reaper.
true. Mason Miller. That's
right.
Chrissy's nickname. But Diaz, I think he is one of those players that they've always kind of questioned: is he a starter? Is he a reliever? Because he threw 3 pitches. He only threw 3 pitches. It was the fastball, the slider, and didn't really add a changeup until the end of the season. Was thrown about 10 times a game. So if he can get a changeup and get that 4-pitch mix, I think he's going to be a really, really good starting pitcher. If not, you've got a guy that could be a middle reliever, eat up some innings, maybe a setup man in front of J-Mart, and they have a wealth of those types of players. But you see that arm, you see the velo, you see what he's able to do with his breaking pitches, and you think starter for certain. And he did great work. He certainly did great work.
It's exciting. Now, this kind of relates back to the national broadcast question, but with the Oakland A's and their farm system, like, do you find it that like you're not as familiar because you're not seeing these guys at that level pass through, or are you still finding that you are just getting to know everybody in the organization still in a similar way?
I'm finding myself turning into my father, which just scares the living shit out of me.
It's only a matter of time.
He said to us is, when you're at the major league level, you don't concern yourself with any of the prospects until they get to AA.
Right.
AA is the proving ground. So from that point upward, and Steph's done a good job keeping me informed about our guys. Like, I have a basic understanding of who they are and where they play, and he fills in the gaps for me, just as I would do for him if he was in my spot and I was still with Amarillo.
They beat us 18 times this year.
Yeah.
24. So saw them a lot. Saw them a lot.
What becomes a really hard thing to do is, you have a team that the A's were a surprisingly fun team.
Yes.
But I think a lot of people expected them not to be. They expected another bad season like last year, and that just wasn't the case. But if they were to have another bad season, maybe you talk about the minor leaguers more. But really, you're supposed to focus on the team in front of you, right? The snapshot of what's coming up, that can be delivered in the pre and post game shows. That can be something that people turn on the radio pre and post or the TV pre and post, and they'll talk about Denzel Clark or Nick Kurtz, or they might talk about Will Simpson, or the new guy Mason Barnett that we just got. So you want to focus on the team at hand. And then if there's a guy that's teetering in AAA that has some awards like AAA Player of the Week or of the Month or whatever, yeah, you'll bring that up because maybe that person will be on the flight to Anaheim next thing you know.
Sure.
But by and large, you want to focus on the current team on the field and stay as present as you can be.
And it really is dependent upon how good the major league team is.
Right.
If they are the White Sox, you're probably looking around and saying, okay, who do we have for next year? And not trying to focus as much about the struggles on the field. You're looking for positives, for silver linings. You're looking at Colson Montgomery and saying, hey, what is this guy going to do for us? What's he going to bring to us? You're looking at your draft picks. You're looking at what is Hagen Smith going to bring in a few years. But the D-backs, fresh off of making the World Series, I'm sure that for Steve and for the great production and broadcast crew they have there, they want to focus on their young dynamic players because this is a young dynamic team. Alec Thomas, Corbin Carroll, McCarthy.
Right.
They are players that could age-wise be in AAA or AA right now. And they're dominant major league players. So that's really exciting to see.
I don't mean to get too personal with you, but I just am curious. It's a difficult season for Oakland A's fans.
Please get
obviously.
personal.
I know. Well, we're going to get more personal.
I'm blushing.
Yeah, but I mean, it feels like it was a weird place for you to be in just because you're excited to be joining the franchise and you're excited to be doing this at a major league level. And yet it was in a year where so many fans were so unhappy about what is going on with the organization and everything involving, leaving the Coliseum.
Yeah. I mean, it is really a tough question to answer and navigate because for me, I was the broadcaster for most of the home games, so I got to know a lot of the fans, a lot of the fans that showed up, and my perspective has not really changed. I feel for the fans that have so much passion about this Oakland A's club. I feel for them. I understand that this is a very difficult time. I definitely feel very hard for the people that, amidst all of the circumstances and all of the things about the team leaving, still showed up to the ballpark.
Yeah.
The ones that were boycotting and all that stuff, I'm sure their perspective is what it is. And I can understand where they come from, but I really feel for the people that would show up to the games. But also, I'm in between an entity that's about to leave, and I have hardly any connection with the A's. And the connection that I created was I was fortunate enough to get to know these individuals, to teach me about the history, and for me to really embrace Oakland as my first spot ever in the big leagues.
Yeah.
And, when you see people crying and you hear people's stories and stuff like that, you can't help but feel emotional for them.
Yeah.
But it is my hope that over time, wherever this team may be, if it's Sacramento or Las Vegas, that the spirit of the Oakland Athletics never dies.
Yeah.
And they can take it to Sacramento. They can take it to Las Vegas. I also understand if people will be turned off to look away. And then at that point, we will try to develop a new audience. But it doesn't mean just because the team is leaving that the Oakland A's are dead.
Yeah.
The spirit of the Oakland A's, one of the most historic teams in the last 60 years.
Yeah.
If you really think about, the Bash Brothers and the Three-Peat and Raleigh Fingers and Reggie Jackson and
so much history.
Dick Williams, all of it, that will never go away.
Yeah.
And, it is my hope that if the A's don't go back to Oakland, maybe they get a few things figured out logistically, and maybe, just maybe, if expansion is still on the board and on the table, Oakland could still be a great place or somewhere in the East Bay for another team to find their home.
I think, and not to speak for Chris, but I think the most important thing to recognize is Chris probably isn't the best person to ask about this, and he would be the first person to tell you is this was his first year, and he was. I couldn't be more proud of the job that he did, and it's always a tough question.
The entire crew did.
It's always a tough question to navigate, but I think that really the fans took him in with open arms, and for our family, we definitely feel for them and thank them. For
I love them. I love them.
Yeah.
That there are some very what was amazing about Oakland, and I mean this in the nicest way possible, because it did not ever give a minor league feel ever. I would take those fans over many other fans in the big leagues right now with their passion and their love for the team and what they did. But it was so intimate this final season. Either you had 5,000 people, sometimes you'd have 45,000 when the Dodgers or Yankees were in town in the big games, and they were just as loud with 5,000 as they were with 45,000. And you would see the same faces over and over again, much like I would in Amarillo. And you'd start to be on a first name basis with these people. And they would really care about you and take the time to say, hey, you're doing a great job. Or, hey, I really like what you do about this. They were never demeaning. And for me, my first steps into the big leagues to have that type of environment was very great for my development. And I will never forget that. And I will be so thankful forever for the city of Oakland and the A's for giving me that opportunity.
What we do know about the A's is that they low-key rake, from what I can tell. At least like more so than people probably perceive, right? Like Brent Rooker, I mean, one of the best hitters in the game. Lawrence Butler, looking back at his numbers this season, a 130 WRC plus. JJ Bleday. That team was a lot better than, I mean, it wasn't great, obviously, but it was better. It was more interesting, more watchable than I think a lot of people expected.
Oh no, 100%. I mean, I never got to ask Mark Kotsay question. I mean, I did, but I never wanted to because he would always get the reporters and he never, I would talk to him in private sometimes, but I asked him finally because in spring training, he said, this team's going to surprise a lot of people. He thought that they were, he said, it's a lofty expectation, but I want to be a 500 team. They ended up having, I think, a winning record in the second half as a club. And I finally asked him, my third to last game of the year, I said to him, hey, how does it feel after creating this idea and saying, hey, this team's going to be a lot better than what you think? And reporters kind of scoffing at it and saying, oh, it's going to be another rebuilding year or whatever. To have your thoughts and your sentiments actualized right in front of you. And it stumped him.
Yeah.
Because when your team is performing as well as they are, you don't really take the time to sit back and smell the roses. You're just trying to ride it.
Yeah.
And they just kept riding it from June to July to August to September. This club turned into one that almost immediately into next year could be a playoff type of team in the wild card.
Yeah. And we, being Valley sports fans, we're seeing that in a similar fashion with what is going on with the Coyotes, right? We had the Coyotes leave the Valley and they made their debut last night, and it's painful. But at the same time, too, it's still the same team. It's the same players that we kind of love and that we've grown to love over the years because they're young guys, young organization. And as painful as it is, there is a part of you that kind of appreciates and is glad that that was a sold out building last night and they got to see all of that love and that this team that was such a big part of the Valley, and lacked sometimes that, I guess that appreciation, is getting it. And I know it might be the new team thing and everything like that, but they look good. And that might be the hardest part, is watching them be good somewhere else. Right. But at the same time too, it's part of what's going on right now. And sometimes it's hard, but it's good for the franchise ultimately. And I mean, as much as the Coyotes thing was a disaster, things look good for them and their future. Do you miss this guy at all? Broadcasting with him?
Every day.
Does Dallas drive you nuts?
I think you would ask that question in reverse, and his answer would be a resounding yes.
Yes, absolutely.
No, he's amazing.
Yeah,
and he's incredibly talented, and he flips the switch when he gets on the air. He's happy-go-lucky, he's goofy, he's whatever, but he has a very amazing ability to present the game in a way that no other color commentator has in this sport. When it goes talking about if I miss my brother, I think, I've been adamant and open about explaining our situation during the offseason. He very realistically could have gotten my job. I mean, I got hired and he was one of the runners up for we and there was a little bit of survivor's
They didn't want
guilt.
Too much beauty in one booth.
No, you got to offset things.
I know it's right.
That's why we are what we are.
There was a little bit of survivor's guilt at first, but I knew that I had a job to do, and I knew that if I were sitting back thinking, well, my brother should probably be in the big leagues over me, which I still struggle with at times because he's so incredibly talented and so good and has taken care of me, that I wouldn't be able to focus on getting the job done and doing the game the way that I think he knows that I needed to do the game. And I know one day, very soon, hopefully, this offseason, we'll see Stefan in a major league booth somewhere, and he'll be able to show the world what I got the opportunity to do this season. And then I won't be relevant anymore, which is great because
awesome.
He's got the body and the hair.
You're going overboard, dude. The $20 I paid you in the parking lot, you didn't need to do this much. But
it was actually 18.
Yeah, it was 18. Yeah, it's inflation. But no, I think that for me, getting to tune into my dad's games in St. Louis and then being able to choose to watch either the Diamondbacks games or the A's games and see him. Dallas made him so much better of a broadcaster, and not that he wasn't already extremely talented, but he's gonna always say those nice things about me. But I mean, I can say this, and I know people, it would sound really arrogant if it came from him, but because I'm his brother, I can still say this. I think that he's already cemented himself as one of the best in the game, and I think that when you get in this at 24 years old, there are a lot of mistakes you can make. There are a lot of situations like we were talking about with national broadcast, how much pressure there is. And even though it's Oakland, it's a team that didn't have a ton of promise in terms of a postseason future this year. There were people that were tuning in, and very different in terms of the audience from Amarillo to Oakland. He made it all extremely entertaining and enjoyable, and credit to the amazing people at NBC, Devin Fox, of course, the director of broadcasting for the A's, Lewis, and Dallas and Jenny and the awesome crew there. They did something in a year that it was really, really difficult to do, and made the games fun, made sure to not lean in on the things that were difficult, but lean in on the things that were exciting for the future.
Chris, I was today years old when at least according to the interwebs, your actual name is Harry. Am I getting that right?
You didn't get this?
No.
This was new information to both of us.
It was new information. It was not just me.
Well, now you understand why I got the job over him.
Yes. Yeah, that was the edge, right?
I mean,
did you take Chris off of your application and just put Harry on there?
I wore it on my forehead.
That boy.
He actually showed up to the first game.
My passport was taped to my forehead.
Gigantic broadcast glasses.
Yeah.
And he was, let me hear ya. You know, just walking into the Oakland Coliseum. That's what he did. And they said, you know what? Man.
Yeah.
I guess when I put on the headset for the first game compared to my audition, they're like, wow, you sound a whole lot younger. Your voice is a whole lot higher than what you were presenting in the. Hey, let me do. No. He as Stefan and I talk about all the time, and it's important to know this. And I'm lucky. I got a job, and I had to audition. I had to interview. So did he, and it went well for me. Yeah. But our names do carry weight. And I'm sure that was a factor. Wasn't the only factor, but it was definitely a factor. And that's something that we know and that we will wear and continually harp on, because it's important for people to understand that I don't think that this was just something that I had earned all by myself. I had a lot of help. Though my dad didn't call the A's or the Sod Poodles or whatever, that name and that influence always plays a factor in marketing and all that stuff. And so, yes, we are Nepo babies. Yeah. But
having the two of you guys separate is a big mistake. That's a huge mistake.
Well, I honestly,
I would sell tickets just based on that.
I don't know, honestly. Man. I think it's great. It's allowed him to be able to do things in his own way and me to do things in my own way. Yeah. Right? We have developed different styles. He's been able to fill me in on a lot of how things are done up at that level in a different way than because my dad was always really hesitant about trying to give us guidance. He's an amazing father, but he never wanted to instill certain broadcast qualities in us because he didn't want us to become miniature versions of him.
Sure.
So for Chris, he has no issue at all with telling me, hey, here's how we're going to do it open up here. And sometimes it annoys the heck out of me. Sometimes he's like, well, up in the big leagues, we do this. And I'm just sitting here. I was like, okay, get off your high horse a little bit, buddy. You were with me not that long ago, but we crack up and we had so much fun with the Sod Poodles. And I mean, I know we haven't talked much about the Diamondbacks at all.
No, I know. Well, that's all right. We have you guys here to talk.
Homeboy hardened me this past season. Well, not this past season, but the season before in Amarillo. I could not call a walk-off to save my life. Stefan would talk to me.
Really?
He's like, I'd look and I was like, how did that go? And he'd like, you think you're going to majors with that? No shot.
That was really,
we get into scream matches. Oh my God. He would. But
no, not physically, just emotionally.
Yeah, emotionally, mentally abusive.
Exactly.
Yeah, but
therapy.
You can survive. I need a little bit of abuse sometimes. Sure. I think it keeps you grounded, especially from your brother and people that say, I like to prove people wrong. I think that's important. But then I have this year, my first ever game is a walk-off single. And then I have 5 more walk-off calls because I was doing most of the home games.
Right.
And I won't say they got progressively better, but they started to identify with my style, and they said that I'm the big play guy of our group in the booth. And that's exactly what we try to do. Just like our father, that's what we believe is the best style. Is sometimes the national broadcasters, they take a little bit of objectivity and neutrality, and their voices are, hey, here's a high fly ball to left and it's gone, and the Yankees lead 1-0 or whatever. We want to make a big moment even bigger. And I think that is what endeared both of us to the A's and eventually got me the job, is because there is a lot of wonderful things that can be explained in baseball.
Jesse could probably hear me from the press box during a I mean, it was a pretty well attended game for a fall league game, but still, I mean, it's not, it's not 30,000 people sitting in the stadium. But still, I mean, Chuck Fox and the people over there have done an amazing job. But the scouts will always look up because they're sitting right down. They're like, why is this kid screaming for this? And it's just like,
who is this for?
Well, I think that for us, people have such short attention spans that we always have said that what we want to do is we want to dominate the 10 to 15 second highlight. If you're on Twitter and you have a call that's screwed up, that's on a big play, yikes. Okay, if you screw up a 2-2 pitch in the second inning and it ends up being a ground ball to short and you say the third baseman gets it, you don't want to make that mistake, obviously, but it's better than screwing up the home run or the triple or whatever it is.
Well, no, it's so funny that you say that, because Steph dragged me along to AFL opening day at Sloan Park in Mesa. Was that 2 days ago or 3 days ago?
Yeah, I think it was
Monday?
3 days ago?
It was
probably Monday.
It was Monday. And so he's up there. It's like the fifth inning. There's a double that rattles off the wall. And, they don't play any like walk-up music or anything like that, which I wish that they would, because it would just make it a little bit, more lively.
It's such a baseball zen kind of thing, especially going out to a night game. But at the same time,
I love it so much.
I do too.
I love it.
It's perfect. I don't want any little goofy games.
Yeah,
I just want baseball.
It's chill. It's just relax.
Well, so I was sitting next to some of the scouts, and one of my friends, scout for the Rays, name is Jason Cole, great guy, and the double is hit. There's a fly ball deep to left, fading away from whatever his name is, and it's off the wall.
See, that's how a major leaguer does it. You guys are getting a little look
pulls up at second base for a leadoff double.
He can't help himself.
Total silence, which is kind of standard for an AFL game, other than the 12-year-olds that are yelling, "Hey, Jack! Yeah, Jack Caglione, whatever." Yeah. The scout says to me,
"I love those kids."
Well, that's one call your brother got right. Because they could hear from the first level.
I think he was implying they got so many other balls.
Yeah, that doesn't seem like it's kind of a backhanded compliment.
Oh, man, I got to talk to Jason about that. He's out of the doghouse. He's going to be in the doghouse. I'm going to talk to him about his number 2 farm system ranking. Ooh, number 2. Wow, why weren't you number 1?
Well, we will have more, not only about AFL here momentarily, but also about the unfortunate events that occurred yesterday with Hurricane Milton basically destroying the roof for Tropicana Field. So we will have that on the other side of this break, so don't go anywhere. But a big shout out to Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Of course, nobody does it better than Gila River Resorts and Casinos. You can visit any one of their 4 locations here in the Valley to experience the best that any place has to offer here in the Valley. You can lounge at one of their 4 diamond resorts, or you can take relaxation to the next level with unbeatable desert and mountain views. I'm a big fan. It's still hot outside, so go out there, hang out by the pool, get yourself a frosty beverage. You can also check out their casino floor with over 4,500 slots and live table games, as well as catching the action in any of their Valley sports books. We'll also be hosting our events all season long, including Cardinals and Sons watch parties. So come out there, join us for those. We'll be having a blast. Stay tuned for more information on how to hang out with us. But you do you at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Visit playatgila.com for more details. And also stop by Circle K, whether you're on your way out to Gila River Resorts or on a road trip or anywhere around the Valley. Going out to an AFL game, stop by, get yourself some sunflower seeds. Also, get yourself a cold beverage at America's Thirst Stop. You can get your first 5 Polar Pops for free if you sign up for the Inner Circle right now, which is also for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit circlek.com for details. You'll also save 25 cents per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups, as well as 3 cents off per gallon every day after that. So do not hesitate. Go join the Inner Circle today. Save yourself some money. Get yourself a frosty beverage. And, of course, cool yourself off. It's still entirely too hot outside here in the Valley. And as I've said, summer is trying to end us, right? The weather in general is very bad right now. I feel like no matter where you live, the weather isn't good, but obviously the weather is absolutely terrible in Florida, considering what's going on there with Hurricane Milton and the unfortunate actions last night of what happened to Tropicana Field. We have some video of that right now to show you. It's not great right now out there in Florida. Can we take a look at that video? This is what Tropicana Field looks like today, or I guess this morning. And this
so sad.
This is awful. This is not great. And
apparently it's rated for like 115 mile an hour wind, something like that. Part of me was almost surprised that this hadn't happened in the past. I mean, they get so many hurricanes. It feels like, at least in that part of the country.
Well, it's annually, right? You always have the hurricane season essentially in Florida, and this is the worst that we've seen. This stadium, it was also being used as an emergency staging site, which obviously is not great.
That didn't work out so well.
Did not work out so well. What was the roof made of? It's
I have to look it up. Yeah, we do have the technical term here.
It's somewhere. A different type of, and we're from Florida, obviously, so that's right. Something that we're very familiar with. But it was really interesting to see the way that this storm developed. The last couple of major hurricanes were on the Atlantic side; they weren't on the Gulf side.
Right.
You look back at Katrina, and you look back at the ones that really formed the Gulf, being the ones that were a little bit more devastating. But the fact that it was on the west side, Fort Myers has been completely flooded, and I'm not saying that there's any positives to this situation at all with Tropicana, but they are building a new ballpark. I know you've seen the renderings of it. I'm curious, in my mind, do they consider putting in that glass roof for Tropicana to see how it holds or reflects the heat, like they're going to do at the new ballpark?
That's interesting.
Like instead of repairing,
instead of fully repairing it, try the glass.
Seems like a fair opportunity to do so. I mean, Stefan's right about the hurricane, though. I'm not going to be weather on the ones. Chris Caray,
not enough hair gel.
Nope, not enough hair. Not yet. No. But the storm itself built in the Gulf of Mexico, and initially they thought it was going to chart towards New Orleans, and then it looked like it was going to end up in Indiana, and then it started taking a hard turn toward the Florida Gulf Coast and Tampa. So at one point, it went from a Category 1 to a Category 5 in the span of 45 minutes. That's not common for a hurricane. And regionally speaking, people on the West Coast look at hurricanes like they're this crazy thing. I don't think there will ever be a hurricane, if it's going to direct hit my town, that I would leave for.
Really?
It is something.
I think that there's also a difference, right? We're not on the water, so again, correct. I don't think. I think it really depends on location. I think you need to be careful about how you.
No. So, but I think that a lot of people say, "Hey, these Florida people are crazy for not leaving their homes or whatever."
Yeah,
there
definitely.
are a lot of things that you can do to mitigate the damage. You might not be able to completely remove all the damage, but by sandbagging and doing this is a common practice where we live in St. Augustine, where our town was rocked by hurricanes for 2 years in a row, Matthew and Irma. I mean, the devastation was unbelievable. We didn't get any national coverage because we're a smaller town, but these hurricanes do have a lot of impact. It's not the wind that's as much the issue. It's the storm surge and the flooding that happens.
Yeah, usually electrical wiring going down, people getting electrocuted. That's the stuff that starts to get people. And you always see the videos of those beach houses that are built up on those stilts that get knocked down into the water. And I always encourage people go get flood insurance. If you're going to buy a house that's near a coast of some kind, go get flood insurance. It's really important because
that can't be cheap.
Yeah, it's not cheap, but it's honestly
get a generator too.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to get a generator. And one of the big issues that always happens during hurricanes, which is why people are always talking about hurricane relief, price gouging. People try and go in and sell generators for 5 times the price because the demand is so high and the supply is so low, which is illegal, obviously. But you want to make sure that these people are taken care of. You want to make sure that these people are okay. And obviously,
well, flights out were outrageous, right?
Horrible.
I saw that people were accusing airlines kind of doing some price gouging when it came to people trying to evacuate.
We have friends come into town that live in Tampa that they're celebrating a bachelorette party. Shout out Clay and Natty. But they a lot of people had trouble getting out, and that's kind of common for hurricanes in Florida. But regionally speaking, if you're in Florida, hurricanes are a common thing that you're aware of and that you can prepare for. Now, this one, going from a category 1 to a category 5 or a category 4 is a totally different preparation process. But tornadoes are devastating as well.
Yeah.
Haboobs can be devastating.
Oh, yeah.
Typhoons. I mean, all of these regionally specific
baboons.
Yeah.
Too.
Baboons. Yeah.
What happened to Tropicana Field is unfortunate. What I can't say happy about, because I don't appreciate the devastation or, you know, the flooding or whatever. But it is my hope, and obviously reports will keep coming, that we're not seeing a high death toll, at least right now.
Right.
Which was obviously a major concern. And a lot of people did get out of town and do the things necessary.
Yeah.
But I also can understand with people sticking with their houses, and people could be displaced for a while, losing their, you know, their hard-earned homes.
Yeah.
And it's tough. It's tough to see, especially if you've been through it before.
Well, my family's from Puerto Rico, so it's the same thing in the Caribbean, right? Storm surges, and even like, it doesn't even have to be a hurricane for it to be a devastating storm in that part of the world, right? But yeah, like when I first moved there, I really thought that a lot of the shutters and stuff I was seeing was like due to like high crime or something. And then when a hurricane came through and everybody was able to like close their houses up and batten down the hatches, I remember being like, oh, that's all right. So yeah, like it does get to a point where people adapt in those parts of the world, because this isn't something that just passes through once, you know, every 5 years or something. It's multiple. Like we're seeing that now, that there's another potential hurricane that's kind of swirling up in the Gulf, which it might take the same path as Milton.
It's hurricane season, and if it's a small one, you're locked in your houses without much power, drinking Tito's. If it's a big one, you're getting out and going north or west, and that's the prayers out to all the families affected, and tons of our family and friends living in Florida. We want to make sure that they're doing okay, and that they're all safe. My family's okay. From what I understand, sandbags are down and everything. So that's always good to hear.
It's good to hear. Well, and what Jesse said is the truth. I think when it comes to the destruction, I'm surprised based on, you know, again, and I know, like you said, it's different where they form and how it approaches Florida. But I'm surprised that this is the first time that there's been damage of this level. I mean, I imagine at times there has been damage that they've repaired based on storms and such, but this is really sad to see.
Yeah, Hurricane Charlie is probably the one you look back to being one of the most damaging. That was 2005 in Orlando.
I mean, if you're talking about a Florida one, I mean, Matthew, Irma, Charlie, you know, Katrina clipped part of the Florida Panhandle as well. So the
but
hurricanes,
the roof survived all of
my
them?
grandparents' roof did not survive Charlie. So,
but he's talking about the Tropicana roof.
Oh yeah. The Tropicana roof. I mean, yeah. I mean, that's surprising.
So but
right?
It does ask a different question, completely separate of hurricanes, right? Just weather in general. Unless you're in like Northern California or really here, but even you guys have a dome. I'm surprised that teams just don't take on with the rising heat everywhere. Like it's in Sacramento, when our team plays there, we're having turf. It's going to be 105 degrees.
Oh, we've seen.
You know, it's going to be, and for teams to. If you put on a roof or a retractable roof, which I know is not an easy expense, then you can play every game.
Yeah.
And he makes a great point about the Tropicana. If you have a glass reflective roof or whatever, I mean, you still see the sky, you still feel like you're outside, but you have that level of comfort to where you have more of a room temperature kind of game.
Yeah.
Where you can sit comfortably, where you can wear shorts and a t-shirt, even if it's, you know, late March, early April and the season's just starting, or end of September where it's starting to cool down in some places. You can take in a game the same way in July as you could in the early parts or end parts of the season. I think it would be a great concept to try and explore.
I mean, that's how we feel here, especially having a retractable roof, even though we can't open and close it right now with people in the stadium.
Love it to be made of glass. Love the natural light.
Love the idea of more natural light, especially after going out to Globe Life Field and seeing all the natural light they have in that building. It's really cool. But
only problem is the awnings, like the overarching shadows.
Yeah.
That makes it difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, it is literally a competitive advantage for a pitcher to be able to have that shadow that's just right over the plate for guys to pick it up in the dark spots.
It'll be interesting to see what the Rays do with this situation. I think they're still kind of assessing the damage and whatnot, but I have to imagine there's a possibility that the Rays come opening day of next year are not able to play at the Trop. It sounds like more information is still coming out in that regard. Maybe we see a situation where they have to I don't know, play at a AAA ballpark or something at least to start the season. So that'll be something to watch for sure.
Could you see them playing in like the Citrus Bowl or maybe at Raymond James?
Yeah, I don't know. I think they'll get creative with it. I think that, again, you look back at
maybe Gainesville, their brand new stadium.
Oh, I think it's even a little bit more different than that. Remember when they were thinking about being a 50-50 team with Montreal?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, right.
Go up to Montreal.
Now, you never want to open. I think that because of the new stadium, that's not going to open up a can of worms for
sure.
But I think like with Sacramento, the fans in Sacramento, I think they're going to try and use this to get a bid to get a major league team, at least when expansion happens.
Yeah,
if a team, if the Rays get displaced, there are going to be a couple of different locations that will try and house the Rays so that they can show, hey, we are a major league environment.
It's a great point. And also, it's like
room in Amarillo, right?
We have a ravenous fan base, but they'd have to compete with the Saudis, which is tough to do. Saudis are hot, baby.
That's a hot ticket.
The one major upside is if they needed to find a stadium, because the Grapefruit League is there. All of those single A spring training stadiums are major league ready clubhouses and facilities. It's just a smaller venue.
Yeah.
And for the Rays, with their attendance and all that stuff, they could have a very aesthetically pleasing environment. However, they won't be playing in a dome, and it does get hot in the west coast of Florida in the summer.
Yeah, maybe Port Charlotte probably would make the most sense. But and you're talking about the sod poodles. They're Gino Groover's sod poodles now.
Yeah,
that's what we want to know. Who are we watching in Arizona Fall League, and who are we watching on the sod poodles?
I mean, well, I'll start with Gino. I mean, dude, this dude is
the real deal.
Oh my gosh, I think it was a bit of a down year in the Texas League, at least offensively, looking at how things played out top to bottom. To see Gino Groover come up after injury and the way that he would will the ball into play, wasn't striking out, did not look at all.
Basically never struck out once he got there.
It didn't look phased at all by the promotion. But going the other way, that was what was so impressive is a lot of times you see guys coming out of college, they have success being pull happy. Gino is, I mean, you already have a third baseman named Gino who's a proven major league star.
Oh yeah, that's easy.
If you want to go plug and play another Gino, I think Groover has a chance to be really, really good. And Gavin Conticello was another guy that, man, he's going to be really, really good. I don't know if you've heard his name much with High A Hillsboro, but he was a Marjorie Stoneman Douglas student. I don't think he was going to school there when the tragedy happened, but he was a phenomenal baseball player and has dipped his toe in the water. But our fall league guys, I believe, if I'm looking at least from the ones that I know, Groover, Troy, Euman, Dylan Ray, Kyle Amon, those are the five I know for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Amon's probably the most intriguing of all of them, and the reason being is he's a low 90s fastball pitcher that has a curveball as well, kind of like a gyro slider, gyro curve, a higher velocity type pitch. But the ride that he gets on that fastball at the top, they just don't hit it. They don't touch it. And I was talking to him before the first fall league game for the Rafters. He said, "Man, I went up to AAA and I kind of got rocked, and they were hitting the curveball, which doesn't happen to me." Mm-hmm. And he's sort of a soft-spoken guy, but he's like 6'5", 230. He's gigantic. And I think he's going to be really, really good as a reliever for the D-backs. But Gino Groover, he is the impact player that's going to be here in this fall league. And I think that seeing him at third, seeing him at second, he can play a number of different spots. But the question comes up for the D-backs over and over again. And I wouldn't want it's a great position to be in if you're Mike Hazen, but it's also a difficult one. What do you do? Yeah. You have Ketel Marte, who's probably going to finish top 3 in the MVP voting in the National League. You want to figure out, is he going to continue to be part of your long-term plans? You have Eugenio Suarez, who struggled in the first half of the season, but then was hotter than anyone in baseball in the second half.
Yeah.
Right.
And now you're running out of some spots for some infielders like Troy and Groover. And
you got Tim Tawa too, who probably, for all intents and purposes, should have had a utility call-up at some point this year.
Right. Well, and I mean, should have is a tough way of putting it, because again, there's the 40-man, there's the roster.
Could have is a great,
could
better,
have,
better
and
way.
I think that I will always be a huge fan of Tim's. I think he does everything really, really well and does everything at a high level. But when you look at the prospects and how much is changing, we're at a point in time now where the last 2 years prior to this season, it was look at Double-A Amarillo. That's where the guys are, and then they're going to Reno, and it was Amarillo and Reno having success, and that's where all the prospects were. Right now, they're in Visalia and starting to work their way into Hillsborough. One thing that I think the D-backs have had to do is start really developing starting pitching, and it's tough to do that.
We talked about that a lot.
You look at Merrill Kelly being kind of a godsend for them. You look at, even though Gallen wasn't really a D-backs farm system product, he is a D-back at this point in time. He probably is the D-back pitcher. But Brandon Pfaadt, Nelson, I mean, all those guys, Ciccone, Jameson Jarvis, and Diaz, they're developing players like that. The Spencer Geesting of the world, he's phenomenal. And Billy Corcoran, a player that just came off the radar that nobody really knew about him. He had like 10 quality starts at Double-A. He was just unbelievable. And then you have Roman Angelo and more waiting at High A. So I think that there's a wealth of opportunity to promote from within the system. But because you're competitive now, do you want to gamble your window on potential young talent that could be extremely successful in the big leagues, or maybe not as successful as you need them to be to get to the majors? I think you have to choose what free agents are we going to go after, which guys are we going to keep, and with Christian Walker, of course, being a huge conversation, that I think is what's going to start everything. What do they do with Walker?
We're dealing with a very similar thing with the A's. Is you have a shortstop now in Jacob Wilson. You have 3 or 4 more that you just that you've either drafted. You've got guys like Max Muncy waiting in the wings. I don't know why teams are so averse to trading away prospects if you know that you have what you want at the big league level already and they're young, because you can fill those other needs. And as we know, as we've started to see with teams like the Orioles with a lower payroll, the Rays, who had 8 consecutive playoff appearances before this year, like, it doesn't necessarily mean you need a $300 million payroll. Now that helps, of course, but if you have that young talent that's controllable, and then you trade for better talent or more talent or talent where you have those needs, you can make the playoffs. Yeah. And that's, I think, what the A's are going to try and do. And maybe the Diamondbacks, with how young and exciting their team is, with guys that might be on the way out in free agency or are getting a little older, that you can plug and play with those spots and have very attractive trade pieces to send the other way for a team that has that immediate need that their window might be closing and they need that power back.
Yeah, we're not GMs, so it's not our decision. I mean, I think it's
sounds like you guys could be though.
No, not even a little bit. Not even a little bit. In my limited interactions with Mike Hazen, I mean, I can't say enough amazing things about what
with David Forrest.
Yeah, oh my gosh, with what those guys have done and what they've been able to build within their respective organizations, I think it is, a lot of teams are changing GMs, they're changing personnel, they're changing staff frequently, and the D-backs have a guy that I think really loves being here, and with everything that he has undergone to be able to have built what he's built, deserves a ton of credit. And again, I'm not a D-backs. I'm not a D-backs employee. I know that I work for the Double-A.
You're a shill still, though.
Well, no, I mean, yes, I still am. But I don't need to be saying these things if they're not true. And that's just the reality. I'm curious what you guys think is going to happen. I mean, Jesse, you follow the team everywhere. I was asking you, we were at Salt River, and I said, what are they going to do? What do they go do? What do they go get? And you have some prospects like Lawler, who I think once he gets healthy could be a part of all of it.
Yeah, could be a big part next year.
A big part of it. And I mean, do you agree? You think it probably starts with Christian Walker?
Yeah, I mean, you'd like it to, right? We walked through their payroll situation the other day on the show, and they're already at about $150 million before trying to bring back Walker, before trying to bring back a Jock Peterson or Randall Grichuk or any of the other guys that they're losing. So I think that's going to define a lot of what they do this offseason. I'm sure they would love to bring back Christian Walker, but I know there's a lot of other teams that would probably love to have Christian Walker as well. There's not a whole lot of guys available that are like him. I mean, it's pretty much Pete Alonso and Christian Walker that the two top names for sure on the first base market. So
Paul Goldschmidt
is there as well. I think he's maybe viewed in kind of a different category at this stage of his career, but yeah, it's going to be a fascinating offseason for the Diamondbacks. Not only how much money they're able to spend, but also kind of how they prioritize everything as well. So, we're going to be talking about it here 5 days a week the entire time.
I love it.
Well, we appreciate you boys so much for stopping by. You guys are the best. We thank you. We'll have you on again before you leave out of town, hopefully.
Absolutely. Maybe we should do it with you guys. Have any liquor sponsors on here?
Oh yeah, we'll figure something.
Let's get a deal.
We'll get that.
We could do like
we'll sponsor that entire episode.
We could do like a watch party,
like a late night episode.
Oh yeah, we have a new show called D-backs After Dark. So maybe you guys should join Damon and myself. There it is, right there. There's the logo for it.
Ooh, I haven't seen the logo.
Yeah,
Man,
it's sexy.
nifty.
It's hot. Yeah, for sure.
We just want to go to like a
Did Damon design that?
Yeah, no, Damon didn't design that, but Damon inspired it. Basically, he had a lot to do with it, and it mostly is just our chance to say all the curse words we can't say on this show anymore. But before we did get out of here, I did have one person I needed to address, and that's Mrs. Montilla. I just wanted to wish a very happy 15th wedding anniversary to my wife, Jen. I love you very much. I'll see you at home. We're 15 years together. We're still out here trying to make the playoffs. You know what I mean? Still competing, still putting in the work. So I appreciate her so much.
Chris, I think your chances are gone, man.
Jen, you're a lucky girl.
We have an open marriage, so we'll talk about it.
There's always a weekend in Scottsdale. I can hydrate myself away, all the sorrows away with some hydration.
We'll figure something out. But we do really appreciate you guys. We appreciate you guys so much for stopping by. Thank you for joining us. Of course, you can follow us all on Twitter. I'm at Cap_Caveman with a K. This maniac is at Jesse N. Friedman. These guys it's Stefan Chris Caray. It's boring. It's easy to find them. Make sure to find them on Twitter. Of course, Damon, the people's producer, is at Damon Dog. That's DAWG. We are all Damon's dogs, and then this is where we bark. So you can bark in any variation that you want.
You know what we didn't do?
What's that?
Why didn't we do a ski?
Oh, you're right.
True. You didn't
you're
do
right.
that
a
at
big
the top,
ski
Derek.
at the top. I'm dropping
mistake.
the ball here, guys. But bark.
Bark.
There we go.
Sicko.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's George
go.
Bulldogs right there.
Yeah.
You got to say sicko.
Right. Yeah, for sure. This guy. Again, our show is at PHNX_D-backs, but all roads do lead to at PHNX_sports on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We appreciate you guys stopping by. We will see you tomorrow for our NLDS Game 5 post-game show tomorrow evening. In the meantime, we hope you guys have a wonderful evening. Behave yourselves, and remember, kids, baseball is fun, but it's so much more fun when you know about the minor league system.
We all silly like the mayor.